I thought hard work could protect me from betrayal, until the day my own boss destroyed everything I'd built, just to save himself. For 5 years I gave everything to that company. Late nights, missed weekends, sleepless deadlines, all because I believed loyalty meant something. I was the kind of employee who fixed problems before anyone even noticed them. My name is Ethan Cole, and for a while I believed I was living the dream. I worked at Redbridge Innovations, a rising tech startup that promised a family-like culture. Like most promises, that one turned out to be a lie. My boss, Daniel Harper, had a way of making people trust him instantly. Smooth voice, charming smile, a knack for saying exactly what leadership wanted to hear. To me, he was a mentor, the man who gave me my first real chance. He once told me, "Stick with me, Ethan. You'll go far." I believed him. I went so far that, without me noticing, I became his biggest threat. By year 5, I was leading our most important project, a data management platform that could attract our largest investor yet. Daniel praised me in meetings, called the project our golden ticket, and publicly credited my work. I felt proud. Then one morning, I received an email from compliance about a data breach, and that my account appeared to be involved. I laughed at first, assuming it was a routine security alert. 2 hours later, Daniel called me into his office. He didn't smile that day. He sat there, pretending to be disappointed, and said, "Ethan, they found evidence you leaked confidential files to a competitor." I remember my chest going cold. "What? That's not possible. I've never—" I started, but he cut me off. "The logs are clear. The data came from your login." I begged him to check for tampering to look deeper. He sighed and said the words no one wants to hear. "I'll see what I can do. But if this goes public, I can't protect you." By the end of the afternoon, HR handed me a termination letter. Security escorted me out like a criminal. The stares, the whispers, the way colleagues skimmed around me. It felt like being erased. Daniel watched from his glass office with that same fake sympathy, and he didn't even bother pretending surprise. In the days that followed, my world collapsed. Job applications returned silence. References I'd trusted went quiet. I was the disgraced employee now, the one who sold out the company. I lost my income, my apartment, even my confidence. I replayed every meeting, every login, every interaction late into the night, searching for a mistake I had made. Then I remembered. A week before the breach, Daniel had asked me to help test security permissions. He had my credentials and access codes. He'd asked for my laptop to run simulations. A sickness spread through me when I realized he used my login to stage the leak and point the finger at me. The man I respected, the one I considered a mentor, had used me like a pawn. I wanted to run to his office and scream, to tear his mask off in front of everyone, but without proof I was just the angry ex-employee no one would believe. So I made a promise that night. If he wanted to destroy me, I would answer, but not with blind rage. I would be precise. I would rebuild. I started small. I researched everything about Redbridge: public filings, investor notes, patent applications, press releases. I learned who their upcoming clients were and when pitches were scheduled. I discovered that the project I had been fired for leading was still being launched, under Daniel S. name, with my work slightly modified and marketed as his team's success. They had changed the name, tweaked some language, but the core architecture, the user flows, even certain interface patterns were unmistakably mine. I spent nights rebuilding a better, cleaner version of that software. I rewrote the modules I knew could fail, tightened the security I'd once been blamed for, and registered the new product under my own name. I called it Phoenix Systems because that S, how I felt, burned down to ashes and slowly rising. I wasn't trying to burn him the way he burned me. I wanted truth to be undeniable. I wanted the industry to see the work for what it was and to know who had actually built it. When the launch date came and Redbridge prepared to pitch a major client with the product they claimed as their own, I was ready. I had documentation, commit histories, timestamps, and a versioned portfolio showing the evolution of the code, all things that could prove authorship. But I didn't rush in with accusations. I planned to expose the lies carefully, in a way that would leave no room for Daniel to hide behind charm or plausible deniability. I stood in my small, rented room staring at the screen late into the night, thinking about how people give away trust like it's free and then pretend to be shocked when it's gone. Betrayal had hollowed me out, but it had also given me one thing I didn't have before: clarity. I couldn't undo what he'd done to my life, but I could reclaim my name. I could make sure the truth didn't just whisper, it would shout. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Daniel S. smirk behind the glass wall. The same smirk he wore as security escorted me out. It burned in my mind like a scar I couldn't erase. But this time I wasn't helpless. I had something stronger than anger: purpose. Over the next week I refined my version of the software, the one I built from scratch, the one he'd stolen. I fixed every flaw, improved the interface, and added a feature Redbridge didn't have: real-time predictive security mapping. It was the kind of feature that made investors lean forward in meetings. Then I started watching Redbridge's moves. I joined online forums under fake accounts, reading posts from employees who were proud of their upcoming big launch. Through whispers on LinkedIn, I learned the truth. They were about to present the software to Sky Nova, a global tech investor worth millions. If that deal went through, Daniel would become the face of innovation. The man who built his success on my work would finally get his crown. But not if I could help it. I had a choice to make: expose him outright or let him fall by his own hand. I chose the second. 3 days before the big pitch, I released a public demo of Phoenix Systems, the improved version of the same software, on a popular developer platform. I didn't call Daniel out. I didn't mention Redbridge. I just posted, "Built this alone after 5 years in the tech world. Feedback welcome." Within hours, people noticed. My project hit the trending list. Developers commented, praising the system design. Some even said it looked like an evolved version of Redbridge's model. That was exactly what I wanted: quiet, subtle, powerful. Meanwhile, inside Redbridge, chaos began. I know because an old friend, one of the few who still believed me, started sending me updates. Daniel was panicking. The Sky Nova investors had seen my demo before the meeting and were asking questions about original authorship. He tried to downplay it, claiming Phoenix Systems was a copy, but my timestamps and code commits were all public. Unforgeable proof that I'd written the system first. His copy looked like what it really was: theft. That's when Daniel made his second mistake. He tried to reach out to me. At first, I ignored the call. Then the texts started coming in. "Ethan, let's talk. You don't understand the damage you're causing. You're making a big mistake." I stared at the screen, heart pounding. The audacity of that man, the same one who had ruined my name, destroyed my career, now acting like I was the problem. So I replied with a single message: "You framed me once. Don't think I forgot." He didn't answer after that, but I knew he'd read it. The next day, Sky Nova canceled the meeting. They issued a public statement. "We are postponing our partnership with Redbridge due to intellectual property concerns." It hit the tech news cycle within hours. Headlines like "Innovation or Imitation?" and "Redbridge faces ownership scandal" flooded social media. Every article compared my open-source project with their proprietary one, line by line, function by function. Daniel's empire started shaking. But I wasn't done. A week later, I sent a confidential email to Redbridge's board of directors. It contained a detailed timeline of how Daniel had accessed my credentials before the data breach, along with security logs and recovered metadata from my old work laptop, proof that the so-called leak he blamed on me had originated from his office IP. I didn't have to threaten them. The evidence spoke for itself. Within days, I received an email from a private address, one of the board members. "Mr. Cole, thank you for your information, Please know that internal action is being taken." I didn't smile. Not yet. I'd learned not to celebrate too soon. But then, a week later, news broke that Redbridge's CEO, Daniel Harper, had resigned for personal reasons. The company's stock plummeted. Investors backed out. Within a month, Redbridge Innovations officially filed for bankruptcy. And the irony? The bankruptcy notice listed the company's remaining debts and project transfers. The last registered software asset before the fall was mine. Phoenix Systems, under my name. Daniel's final act of arrogance, filing false ownership paperwork, legally backfired, making me the rightful claimant to what was left of the intellectual property. His company went bankrupt under my name. I remember reading that line on the official document over and over again. Part of me wanted to laugh, part of me wanted to cry. Mostly I just sat there in silence, realizing that justice doesn't always come loud. Sometimes it arrives like a quiet echo of everything you've endured. Daniel disappeared after that. Some said he left the country. Others claimed he tried starting a new company under a different name. I didn't care. For me, it was over. Still, one night, months later, I got one last email from him. No threats, no denial, just one line. "You won, Ethan, but at what cost?" I closed the message without replying, because he'd never understand. It wasn't about winning, it was about truth. When Redbridge went down, it didn't feel like victory at first. It felt quiet, like standing in the ruins of something that once meant everything to me. I had dreamed of working there for years, believed in the people, the vision, the purpose. Watching it collapse, even after everything Daniel had done, hurt more than I expected. For weeks, I stayed away from the noise. Reporters reached out, old colleagues messaged, and strangers online called me the guy who took down his boss. I ignored most of it. I didn't destroy Daniel's company out of spite. I just pulled back the curtain and let the truth do the rest. But the world doesn't always care about intention. It only sees results. One morning, I walked into a small cafe, laptop in hand, and overheard two men talking about Redbridge. "Man, can you believe that company went bankrupt so fast?" one said. "Yeah," the other replied. "Their CEO got caught stealing code. Some guy named Ethan Cole exposed him. They didn't even know I was sitting 2 tables away." I just smiled faintly and kept typing. That day, I received an email from Skynova. The same investors Daniel had tried to impress. They had been following the story and they wanted to meet me in person. Not as a suspect, not as a scapegoat, but as a developer, a creator, a partner. When I walked into their office, I felt the same nervous energy I had the day I first interviewed at Redbridge. But this time, I wasn't walking in with blind trust. I was walking in with clarity. The meeting lasted hours. They asked about Phoenix Systems, my plans, my goals. They listened, really listened, and by the end one of the executives smiled and said, "Mr. Cole, we're interested in funding your project." I didn't say anything for a moment. Part of me still didn't believe it. But when I finally shook his hand, it felt like closure, the kind that comes not from revenge, but from rebuilding. Months passed. Phoenix Systems grew. We hired a small team, launched officially, and landed clients who valued transparency. Every success felt like reclaiming a piece of myself that Daniel had tried to erase, but no matter how high I climbed, I never forgot the lesson that started it all. Because betrayal doesn't just take away your trust. It forces you to decide what you will do with what's left. There were nights I'd still think about the old days, how we used to celebrate product launches, how Daniel used to pat me on the back and say, "You're the future of this company." Sometimes I wondered if he ever meant it. Maybe he did, until fear turned him into someone else. Then again, maybe betrayal doesn't change people. Maybe it just reveals who they really are. One afternoon, I received a message request from an unfamiliar name. It was short, polite, almost hesitant. "Ethan, I used to work under Daniel. I just wanted you to know that everyone eventually found out what he did. You were right all along. Thank you for standing up." I stared at the screen for a while, realizing that for years I'd been carrying the weight of trying to prove I wasn't the villain in someone else's story. And now, finally, I didn't have to anymore. Not long after, a journalist reached out wanting to write about my journey, from being framed to rebuilding my life. I hesitated, but then I agreed, on one condition, that the story wasn't about revenge, but about resilience. When the article came out, the headline read, "The Man Who Rose from the Ashes of Betrayal, How Ethan Cole Rebuilt What They Tried to Destroy." It went viral. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was honest. People connected with it, those who'd been betrayed, blamed, or underestimated. My inbox flooded with messages from strangers saying, "Your story gave me hope." And that's when it hit me. The real revenge wasn't Redbridge collapsing or Daniel losing his job. It was me standing there, alive, stronger, untouchable, proof that no betrayal could define me. I never tried to contact Daniel again. Some said he'd gone completely off the grid. Maybe he started over, maybe he didn't. But I didn't need to know. Some stories end not with confrontation, but with silence. Because sometimes silence says everything. Today, when I walk past office buildings at night and see lights still glowing in the windows, I think about the younger version of myself, the one who stayed late, believing loyalty would protect him. I wish I could tell him, "You were right to care, but wrong to think they'd care the same." If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: loyalty without truth is just a trap. And revenge isn't about destruction, it's about redemption. I didn't just survive Daniel Harper's betrayal, I became everything he pretended to be. That's my justice.